Ted was definitely the best. Coming to work every day, that was one of my favorite things that we had here at the company, was just having Ted come in, and the way he'd come into any meeting or anybody's office and just immediately kind of light up the room with a joke or a quick story or whatever it may have been. But just having the opportunity to work with Ted, I mean, there was nothing like it, and there was nothing really better than it.
The first thing that Ted really taught me, and the thing that's probably stuck with me the most, is just how passionate he was about the job and the company, and just how to always be passionate and to always care about what you do and how you go about your business, and how to always treat people correctly and treat them with respect. That's something that has, really hit on me immediately, and it's something that stuck with me, from my first day through, today, and will be through my last day.
There's a bunch of memories. It was a real, every day was a different one. Every day was interesting. It was a real pleasure and a real privilege to work with Uncle Ted. We called him the boss. He was an original. They haven't, and they won't make him like Ted again. I worked for and with Ted for 17 years here at TDC, but in some ways my whole life. He was always my fun, great uncle, and he just took so much pride in everything that was created here. He loved his kids and his grandkids, but he really thought of the team here as another, as family as well, and he was always so proud of that. It was just, it was neat. It was fun, and lunches were fun. Meetings were always interesting. He liked long meetings. He liked challenging people. He loved to argue. Also loved to clear his throat, which was could always, no matter how heated or intense it was, he would do that, and we'd all sort of break character and say, "Whoa, Ted, what just happened there?"
I probably have known Teddy the longest of anyone, before Lorraine, before Tommy and Jackie. We were Ted's family. My brother, sister, and I were his kids. My dad was Ted's older brother, and like older brothers, they had their good days and bad. Older and younger brothers. I think Ted pestered my dad a lot, and I think my dad treated Ted like a little brother. So they had a wonderful relationship and loved each other a whole lot. I remember a lot of stuff about the two of them. I do have a story I want to tell, but I'm going to save it for the banquet. But it'll give you a real good idea of the relationship the two of these guys had together. They were very, very, very funny. They were very, very, very close. Ted looked up to my dad as his older brother, and when he had a question, a family question, because my dad had raised his boys already by the time Tommy and Jackie came to live with him, he called my dad. I remember one night we were sitting at the kitchen table eating dinner, and the phone rings. My mother answered the phone, and she yelled across from the kitchen that it was Ted, and he had just married Lorraine, and Tommy and Jackie had just moved in. And Ted's question to my dad was, he needed to have the talk with Tommy, the sex talk. And he wanted to know what my dad had told my brother and I, since we were a little older, and you know how serious Ted takes all of his new responsibilities. And I remember my dad yelling out from the kitchen table, "Hey, tell Tommy to learn about sex in the street like my boys did, and quit bothering me with your stupid questions while I'm eating dinner." And that was the type of relationship that they had. They had that big brother, little brother relationship.
There's a million Ted stories. It's impossible to choose one that, was my favorite or the best. But just to, one that came to mind initially was a few years ago, we were meeting with our internet marketing team, and this was very early on in the search engine optimization days. And we had our group in, and Ted joined the meeting because Ted would Ted would attend every meeting he could, whether he knew about it or not. He would always walk in, and this incredible thirst for knowledge, and was really into this meeting on Google and whatnot. Had no idea really what anybody was talking about, but was just absolutely intrigued. And it was a good meeting. At the end of the meeting, looked at him and said, "Well, Ted, what do you think?" And it's sort of a puzzled, confused, and concerned look on his face, and he said, "John, these results are great. Very happy with what we're getting out of Google, but I just don't understand why you're comfortable with us spending so much money on paper clips." And we said, "No, paper clicks, not paper clips." And the room died laughing, and everybody, Ted was a great sport about it. He was laughing as hard as anybody. So it just, there's a million of those stories.
We had a partner in Chicago who we did a lot of work with, and his name was Brian, and Ted would always call him Ben and keep repeating Ben, this Ben, that Ben, and that always created for some interesting challenges as well.
One of my favorite Ted stories happened a few years ago here in the office. We were working on the framing contract and buying out the lumber contract for Millennium Kirby, a apartment project here in Houston. And we're really down to the end of the negotiation. And I was in there with the owner of the framing company, and it was a company that we've been working with for a number of years, decades actually, that Ted and my grandfather Bill really worked with a lot in kind of the old days. And we had been in there for a couple hours or so, and Ted was in there as well. And it was kind of one of those days where Ted would walk in and see what's going on, and I guess my office is first, closest to the elevator, and he stuck his head in my office and kind of wound up there for the next couple hours. But anyways, I stepped out to go get some coffee, and I come back in, and Ted is standing up with his shirt off, and the framer is unbuttoning his shirt. And at the time, Ted was, I think, 82, and I think the framer was 78, and they were comparing scars from heart surgeries. And to Ted's point, his scar was bigger, so he won. And they were sitting there, and keep in mind, this is a multi-million-dollar contract that we were just about to agree to terms on. My fault for stepping out for 1 minute, leaving Ted in charge, but literally his shirt's off, the framer's shirt's off. A lot of questions, kind of an awkward situation, and kind of asked everybody to, all right, we got to get back to work here. And Ted kind of looks at me and says, what's wrong with you? You're all business type deal. But anyways, just one of my favorite Ted stories.
I miss Ted a lot. It was like having two fathers for quite a long time. We had him to ourselves for many, many years, because I don't believe Ted married till he was in his late 30s. And by that time, we were already teenagers. So he was fun to have around, and I do miss him terribly.
He liked walking the sites. He liked walking the projects once they were up in operations. He would kind of walk around, eat their popcorn, put his hat on a little bit sideways, point everything out to each of us, which sometimes made us laugh, sometimes sort of frustrated us a little bit.
He truly, really was and still is the heart of this company, and he's absolutely missed every single day.
Ted loved the $100,000 club. I mean, there were very few things in his entire life he loved more than this company, and the $100,000 club was up there with one of his favorite events of the year. I mean, it was basically Ted's Super Bowl, and he loved seeing everybody and loved celebrating success, and it's just a great mint. And I know I'll always think of Ted every time I come back to Vegas for the $100,000 club.
Back in the early 1980s, Bill and Ted Dinerstein wanted to find a way to recognize the top performers in the management company. So they developed the $100,000 club. Once the club began its annual events, Ted embraced every facet of the club. His involvement was so inspiring that we developed the Ted Dinerstein Award to give annually to the top performer in the management company. Ted loved all of you and was so proud of all of you, and we will continue to honor his legacy with this award each year. So on behalf of myself and the family, we want to congratulate this year's winning recipient.